Okay, so I'm going to go into, if this is helpful, I'm going to go into a little bit deeper with each one of these so that you can help to, and I want you to be going through your own, I want you to be going through your own childhood and thinking about, okay, how was I parented? And two, I want you to think about specific examples throughout your day and week and thinking, okay, which approach am I using? Right? So I want to bring this down and make it very real, very concrete for you so that we can begin the process, because awareness is the first step to change. You can't change something if you're not aware of it. So if we can become aware, we can name it, that helps us to begin to then make the switch into being more authoritative, because that's ultimately what we want. Because and we'll talk about it, like the research shows that authoritative, in fact, I'm going to talk about that really fast right now so that you understand why. Like this is backed by research by people who have been studying it for quite a while, and that the best long-term outcomes for our children, including the types of relationships we have with them, which we just mentioned, comes from authoritative parenting with the high warmth and the high expectations. It also includes overall greater academic performance, greater emotional intelligence in your children. They have more emotional intelligence when you are authoritative. They have more confidence and independence. They also have more competence. They have better decision-making skills and problem-solving skills. They have stronger social relationships, starting with family members, of course, but then that branches out. And they have lower rates of anxiety, depression, substance abuse, and risky behavior. Like this is what the research is showing, that authoritative parenting beats every other style with getting these better long-term outcomes, right? And the reason why, of course, is because that, like Greg was talking, it's this combination of high warmth, high connection with high standards. You have to have both. Kids need both. And so they feel seen, they feel validated, they feel that their emotional needs are being met, they feel that they have trust with their parents, they can trust you, right? And that's the foundation of like their life, because when your children have trust for their parents, the most important people in their life, it's like this solid foundation in which they can build everything else on. So let's go through this a little bit more. And I hope you don't feel like I'm pushing on this, like beating this too much. I just feel like it's so important to clearly understand that throughout the day when we are doing certain things, and maybe we can start talking about this as a couple, be like, babe, I think that was a little bit authoritarian. Dictator. That's a little bit dictator there, Stalin. We can start to bring awareness, and including ourselves. That was very permissive of me. Oh, that was neglectful. In a way, we're not labeling it or labeling ourselves to try to feel bad or guilty or nothing, none of that. It's simply awareness. That's it. Oh, awareness. That was neglectful. Okay, I'm going to try to change that so that we can begin to move into this better style.
Do you see how she's doing that? And saying that was neglectful instead of I am.
Right.
But we're not labeling ourselves. We're not taking on an identity.
Mhm.
I'm a dictator parent. No, it's like, man, yesterday I used a dictator tactics.
Yeah.
That's lame. I don't want to do that. Right? I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. So these are just tendencies.
Yes. I love that. Thank you for emphasizing that, because that is something Greg and I have learned how to do, and we may not always share that. We have learned to separate it. I behaved in a neglectful way, or I used a neglectful tactic, not I am a neglectful parent, right? It's very, very different. So that's the approach I want you to think of. Okay, so if you use dictator or authoritarian approaches, you often say things like, because I said so, end of discussion, especially if your child questions a rule or something like that, or asks why.
Or you just forbid asking questions. If your kid's like, well, hey, why? Don't you dare talk back. Don't ask why.
Just do it. And you focus more on obedience than you do on helping them gain understanding. You expect instant compliance without explaining why. And for me, I grew up in an environment, like my dad was very much about obedience. And I grew up in a culture that was like children should obey their parents. So it was very much like you just obey first time, no asking why, no like immediate compliance. And that's just not, in my mind, realistic. I would never expect that of any other adult. I asked you to do that. You must do it now, this second. That's just not real. So I began to have more respect for my kids of like, well, I'm going to respect them and they can comply without having to do it immediately the moment I ask.
This next one's huge,
Yes.
gigantic. And most of us have grown up in a culture where we think this is good parenting. But it's if we use punishment as a primary method of discipline. Let that sink in. If you use punishment as a primary method of discipline, then that falls under the dictator tactics.
And I think that this is one of the things where being an authoritative parent, you use different techniques as a tool when needed and when necessary. But, and because I remember that I used to think that same thing too, like, well, there's sometimes life or death when, they're going to need to obey me immediately. And then I realized, well, yeah, that's true, but that's actually very rare.
0.5% of the time. But if we're not careful, we keep telling ourselves stories, especially as dads. No, my kids, they've got to just respond as soon as I say so. And we think it's like 50% of the time. When you really go through life, even we've taken our kids to like 60 countries. And the times where I'm like, bro, you gotta just do it now have been so insanely rare. And for me, I realize the more I'm willing to explain early on, the less I have to explain later on. If they realize, man, dad's asking me to do this, I know he has a good reason. And if he can't tell me now, he will tell me later.
Yeah, I think that that's spot on. So the more we invest in explaining when our kids ask, right? Like I don't feel like I have to give them a reason every time. I'll say, like, do the dishes. And they'll do it. But if they ask, and that happens at some point in their development, why? Why do I have to do the dishes? Well, I explain. And I'm willing to have that conversation. And I'm willing to make that investment of helping them in their mental, emotional development to understand there's actually a reason why humans do the dishes, right? It's not just because mom says so. When we make those investments as often as possible, then you're right. When the obedience is necessary, they already know that we have reasons behind everything because we've been willing to explain them when they've asked. And then I also think there's an element too, because they know us and because they know we explain things whenever we can, they can tell when the mood changes and we're in like, no, this is serious mode. We just need to do it now. And they know it's not us trying to use some tactic to get them to obey, but like, it's really serious now. So let's just get it done because something's going on that we don't know about. Mom and dad will explain it later.
And
Say no.
it's so rare. They're like, yeah, we're on board. Let's go. But if I'm using that daily, no, guys, this is serious today, again, every day. They're like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the boy who cried wolf.